In 1982, dancer, actress, singer and choreographer Antonia Cristina Basilotta, better known as Toni Basil, released the global smash hit Mickey. The song and the video epitomised 80s music and thrust the singer into the mainstream. But there's a few surprising details about the song. Not least of all, that this signature song is in fact a cover version.
Oh, kitty, you're so pretty, can't you understand? It's girls like you, kitty.
Although some may regard Toni Basil as a one-hit wonder, Mickey is just one highlight in an illustrious career that even in 1982, had been going for nearly 20 years. Toni Basil's family were musicians and entertainers. Her father conducted orchestras, and her mother was an acrobat along with her two sisters and two brothers, in the popular novelty act Billy Wells and the Four Fays. She attended Las Vegas High School where she was the head cheerleader and was already dancing professionally by then. Her career started to take off when she landed the role of assistant choreographer to David Winters for the music variety TV show Shindig.
This is Jimmy O'Neill inviting every single one of you to move with the swinging music of young America. Twice each week, swing with Shindig.
And the concert film The Tammy Show. She appeared in a number of movies in the 60s and 70s, including Pajama Party and Viva Las Vegas with Elvis, where she was the girl in the red dress.
See the girl with the red dress on, she can do the dog all night long.
She featured alongside Dennis Hopper in Easy Rider and Jack Nicholson in 5 Easy Pieces. She also choreographed and featured in the Monkees movie Head. In 1966, she starred in the short movie Breakaway by artist Bruce Conner, where she sings and dances to the title song.
I'm gonna break away from all the chains I bind.
That track was released as a single by A&M Records and was her first outing as a recording artist. It would go on to be one of the many rare and obscure Northern Soul favourites. By the 1980s, she had a long list of credits, including music videos for Talking Heads and tours for David Bowie. She became known as a pioneer of street dance for her contribution to the Lockers dance group she started with her then boyfriend Don Campbell, the man credited with inventing the dance style locking. It's likely the character of Kelly Special K Bennett in the movie Breaking is at least in some part inspired by Toni Basil, and many of the Lockers appeared in Breaking and the sequel. Just like the Special K character, Toni Basil was known to mix street dance with more classical styles such as ballet. In 1988, she received an Emmy nomination for her interpretation of Swan Lake, performed with the Lockers.
The two dance styles closest to my heart are American street dancing and classical ballet. And tonight, I get to bring them both together in my interpretation of Swan Lake.
In 1979, she met Simon Lay, who had just started a small record label in England called Radio Choice, and he was on the lookout for new artists.
I met Toni in kind of rock and roll Chinese restaurant on Sunset Boulevard. The attraction was instant. She was clearly a star waiting to be discovered.
Despite her being 38 at the time, he thought her style would appeal to a younger audience, so he went looking for the perfect song.
I chose to target the whole thing at a very young audience because I believe they wouldn't have any preconceptions and they would be open. That led us to material like Mickey, and that naturally led me to Nicky Chinn because that's what he did.
His search for the right song took him to Nicky Chinn, who along with his writing partner Mike Chapman had already penned hits such as Ballroom Blitz, Tiger Feet, and Living Next Door to Alice.
Now I gotta get used to not living next door to Alice.
I was in Los Angeles at our offices, and I got a call from Simon Lay, who said he had a small record label and an artist, and he was looking for pop songs, and could he come to see me?
He was playing me lots of different things, and I would say yes, maybe, no. Then he played me this track by, I think it was a band called Racy, a song called Kitty.
Been around all night, that's a little long. You think you got the right, but I think you got it wrong.
I said I would do it if I could put the cheerleader chant on it. Of course, I changed it to Mickey because it was the closest thing to rhyme for the rest of the tune.
A rumour would later circulate that this was a reference to Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees, who she'd briefly met some 15 years earlier on the set of the movie Head. Toni Basil denied this connection, saying that she barely knew Mickey even though they'd spent time on the movie set together. None of the other lyrics were changed, and as a result they took on a different meaning to some people, now that they were being sung by a girl to a boy, and not vice versa. Especially the line, this prompted a Billboard and Rolling Stone journalist to declare Toni Basil the first woman to offer to take it up on Top 40 radio. The now legendary video for the song was conceived even before the track was recorded. Toni had wanted to include some of her cheerleader skills in the video from the outset, and devised the opening chant, "Hey Mickey, you're so fine," to mimic the classic cheerleader cheers she recalled from high school. The record label hated the chant and begged her not to include it in the song.
Actually, the record company asked me not to put the chant on because they were very concerned it would ruin the tune.
It was still a few months before MTV was launched, so a video seemed unnecessary at the time, so the label refused any funding for one. With no budget whatsoever, Basil took it upon herself to entirely produce the video, even digging out her old cheerleader uniform from high school. She enlisted cheerleaders from Dorsey High School and Carson High School, both in LA. The girls from Dorsey High performed the chant at the beginning of the song, but didn't show up for the video shoot, so it's the girls from Carson High that you see in the video. The single entered the UK charts on January 31st, 1982 at number 64. 3 weeks later it had risen to number 11, and the following week it reached number 2, where it stayed for 2 weeks. A few months later the song was released in the USA, where it took 15 weeks to reach number 1. A follow-up single, Nobody, was released but didn't make the top 40, peaking at 52 in the UK charts. Her debut album, Word of Mouth, was released on VHS as a collection of videos, making it one of the first visual albums. The album reached 22 on the US album charts and was certified gold. It reached number 15 on the UK charts. In 1982, she signed a deal with Radio Choice for a second album, called Toni Basil. This was released in 1983. 3 of the 4 singles from that album charted, but they didn't break the top 40 and the album failed to chart at all. Following the disappointing sales of her second album, she went back to what she knew best, dancing and choreography. In 1984, she worked with Bette Midler on her Beast of Burden video that was nominated for Best Choreography in a Video at the MTV Awards. She worked on movies such as Peggy Sue Got Married and Tom Hanks's directorial debut, That Thing You Do, a movie about a fictional one-hit wonder. She's so highly regarded in Hollywood that even at 74 years old, when Quentin Tarantino needed a choreographer for his 2019 movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there was only one person he thought to call.
She knows this world perfect. So when it came to actually teaching Sharon how to do the go-go dancing and everything, there was only one person to go to. And then one of the cool things that she did is when we were doing the sequence at the Playboy Mansion, and then I got the idea, well, wait a minute, what if we had about 4 Playboy bunnies out there kind of dancing in the background? I came up with that idea on the day, and then I had to be able to send Toni to go teach them a dance routine that they could do all night long, and she did. That's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is those Playboy bunny dancers doing their little dance bit.
Although she'd already had a career spanning 2 decades when Mickey hit the charts, the song definitely made her famous. But it didn't make her much money, an all too common story in the music business.
I don't think my story is an unusual story for a lot of, record music performers. But I think that since 1982, worldwide, I have probably seen less than $3,000 American in royalties.
This was largely due to the fact that the song was a cover, and the writers refused to give her any credit for the parts that she added, even though the Hey Mickey chant is the catchiest and most memorable part of the song. They told her that was just a minor adjustment, and it didn't warrant any credit, and ignored all her protests. Another factor is that the label Radio Choice folded in 1984. Despite having a huge worldwide hit like Mickey in their catalogue, Radio Choice was in financial trouble. Other than one other UK top 10 single, I Eat Cannibals by Toto Coelho, the label's other releases were commercial failures, and in March 1985 the company was forced into liquidation, and by June 1988 was dissolved. Just prior to its dissolution, the rights to Mickey and the other Toni Basil recordings were transferred to Stillwater Limited. In 1989 the rights were transferred again, this time to Roy Clifford Tucker, a tax accountant infamous at the time for his involvement in one of the biggest tax avoidance schemes in the UK, known as the Rossminster Affair. Tucker held the rights for 5 years, collecting all the relevant revenue from Mickey but not accounting to the artist as per the conditions of her original recording agreement. And then in March 1994, he transferred the rights to another company he was the principal of, Odell Finance Corporation, based in the notorious tax haven of Panama. The price on record for this transfer was just £1. In August 1994, Odell Finance entered into a licensing agreement with Razor and Tie Music that allowed the recently formed US-based company to grant licenses to other third parties. In 1995, during the active term of the deal with Razor and Tie, Odell Finance transferred the rights once again, this time to Odell Licensing Limited, a company based on the Isle of Man, another well-known tax haven. In October 1997, Odell Licensing Limited transferred the rights to a UK-based company, Twist and Shout Limited. Despite all these transfers of ownership, Razor and Tie continued to act as the rights holders of Mickey and collected all the related revenue, and never accounted to Toni Basil. Razor and Tie issued a license for the use of Mickey in a South Park episode for which they received $25,000.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, mama, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hell, mama! Hell, mama!
Also for an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, likely attracting a similar fee, and also for a Forever 21 advert for a Mickey Mouse themed Disney collection of clothes. It's unknown how much the fee was for that, but usually sync licenses for adverts are far more expensive, as there's often an implied endorsement of the product by the artist. And in the case of the Forever 21 ads, the song lyrics appear to have changed meaning once again to seem as if the Mickey in the song is in fact Mickey Mouse. From the time Radio Choice folded in 1985, Toni had been searching for who now owned her recordings. Due to the constant transfer of rights between offshore companies, it took her until February 2011 to identify Razor and Tie as the purported owners. At that time, she had her legal team send a cease and desist letter to the New York-based company, informing them they didn't have the right to issue any licenses without her consent, as she believed the previous transfer of rights to be invalid. The following year, Razor and Tie contacted her for permission to issue a license to use Mickey in a national ad campaign, a request she denied. Despite that, Toni Basil didn't find out about all the uses of Mickey until 2017, at which time she filed a complaint with the Superior Court of California. Named as defendants in the lawsuit was Razor and Tie, Forever 21, Disney, Central Productions, the makers of South Park, along with Viacom and New Open Door Productions, the broadcasters and makers of RuPaul's Drag Race. As she didn't own the sound recording and was not credited as a writer, she wasn't able to make this a copyright case, and instead it was a claim of trademark infringement. This tactic proved unsuccessful as Judge Percy Anderson ruled that trademark law couldn't be used to extend rights already covered by the Copyright Act. As alleged in the complaint, defendants used Basil's name in the Mickey song title to describe her or the song, not to describe their own products, Judge Anderson said. Basil in the song cannot be described except by using her name in the song's title, and the complaint does not allege any well-pleaded facts suggesting that the defendants use more of the marks than reasonably necessary or do anything that would suggest sponsorship or endorsement. The judge did leave it open for Basil to amend the complaint and try again, but she declined to take up this option, and instead decided to try and take ownership of the masters herself. A clause in the US Copyright Act allows artists to regain rights transferred to labels 35 years after the initial deal. But the current owners, Stillwater Limited, were not going to give up without a fight, and it took until 2022 to be resolved. Stillwater argued that the clause not only gave Toni Basil the right to reclaim ownership, it also gave the track's producer, Greg Matheson, the same right, meaning she could only claim a share of the recording rights, and the label could retain Matheson's share. That led to a debate over what Matheson's role had actually been. Most people assume that record producer is a creative role. In truth, there's no set definition of what a producer does. In the early days of the recording industry, the producer was more of a project manager, selecting and supervising the many people needed to make a commercial quality sound recording, which was often a dozen or more people. Over the years, the role of producer has evolved and will now often combine multiple roles, all under the title of producer, but which roles they perform will still vary depending on the person. As a result, the term producer has become incredibly vague. It could mean anything from being an integral part of the creative process, writing parts and playing instruments, to doing very little and not even being present for all of the sessions. So in the case of Mickey, did Greg Matheson make a substantial contribution to the recording? Or did Toni Basil make all the creative decisions and Matheson just pressed record? The lower court reached the conclusion that it was the latter. They ruled that Toni Basil was the sole owner of the recording rights to Mickey. Stillwater took the matter to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, who upheld the lower court's decision. In their judgment, the appeal judges wrote, "Stillwater has not proved joint authorship by a preponderance of the evidence, and Stillwater has produced little evidence that Matheson exercised control." A few factors led to this determination. Firstly, the contracts signed with Radio Choice in 1979 and 1982 both gave the artist creative control. Secondly, at this time Greg Matheson was an inexperienced producer with no track record to show he had influenced other works he'd produced. The appeal judges ended by stating, "Basilotta appears to have primarily wielded creative control, selecting songs and instrumental musicians, devising the creative concepts for the recordings, and even helping Matheson mix the master tapes." So finally, more than 40 years after it was first recorded, Toni Basil will start to see some of the financial rewards of her iconic 80s hit and signature song. Mickey has been covered and adapted a number of times, including forming the basis for Run DMC's hip-hop classic, It's Tricky. It's also been translated into Swedish and Japanese. Weird Al recorded a parody of the song called Ricky, along with a video, and was the first of his parodies to feature on MTV. The song itself has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the video is in the permanent collection at the Museum of Modern Art, making this one of the highest regarded signature songs of all time. What do you think? Let me know in the comments and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for all the latest videos. And if you want to support the channel, there's a few ways you can do that. You can use the thanks button under each video to send a tip, or grab something from the merch shelf or store tab. There's t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags and cushions, all in a variety of colours and sizes. All profits go towards making new content and running this channel.